Futures trading involves risk and is not suitable for all investors. Content provided in this segment is meant for educational purposes and is not a solicitation to buy or sell commodities.
Welcome to Grain Gab, a show where we sit back and gab about what's going on in our minds in this grain market and how it's affecting you, our producer, and just what to do about it. Look, these grain markets are forever moving. They can be crazy and downright just emotional. That's why we're here, to sit down, look at things holistically, find a strategic yet grounded approach to handling the obstacles that the markets may give us. I'm Lori Nelsen, your host, and with me today is Kristin Stien. How's it going, Kristin?
We're doing good, Lori. What's in your cup today?
Well, I'm just going to tell you it's chocolate milk.
Wink, wink, or like, what do you mean? I'm just going to tell you.
You know, I'm wishing there's something else in it.
What are you doing over here, Lori?
I want to keep it a family show.
Fair enough.
What's in your cup today?
I am drinking some good old kombucha.
Oh, say kombucha 3 times.
Kombucha 10 times really fast, right? So got to get that gut health working nice and good. So
good for you. This month, the markets, I want to say, have had positive price movement. May is tried to approach that 50-day simple moving average of 450, coming from a 409, the end of February low there. Soybeans are trying for $12 and coming from an 1128 low off the May. We're seeing some timely rains in South America, which makes that safrinha crop look pretty decent. Argentina's hoping to get some scattered showers, which will help mature that crop. China has been canceling some red winter wheat. Wheat export inspections are down 16% from last year. Soybeans are down 19% from last year, while corn is up 33% from last year. Last week, the WASDE report, world stocks came in slightly lighter than the month before. Next report we'll have will be March 28th as the prospective planning report and quarterly stocks report. And U.S. weather will start to affect the market that we're watching. Kristin, what have we been doing with producers here lately?
All that you rattled off, there's quite a bit going on and at least things to talk about, even though we're not in our key growing season yet. To your point at the end of it, I think we're going to be getting close to that time period. We had some reports that people's focus is getting less and less on South America and more on the US. What's interesting about that, I mean, their main harvest is their first crop, right? But the second crop, I did see some forecasts coming in on a little bit drier weather than the rain that they've been getting recently. So that'll be a thing to watch. The thing that we've been working on personally is off of this little bump, the support that we finally found, which take a deep breath on that because we were hitting that $4 nearby and 450 support line and really pushing that on corn. And it was getting a little dicey there for a second. So it was a really good thing that we found support there. Now that we actually have, now it's kind of all right, where do we go from here? Where are the new good areas that we should be selling this market? So that's the main thing that we're looking at. We're trying to get those targets readjusted from when we had those winter meetings with them and say, how aggressive do you want to get sold at each of these levels?
As they come into planting, they're getting busier and busier. So preoccupied with the planting that'll be here in a couple short weeks. Mm-hmm. So just making sure we're getting
planting
guys
already down in Missouri.
First plant date I think is April 1st. So we're not far from that.
The race is on. We're within a few weeks.
Taking a look at rule number 10, we talked about that last week, just kind of focusing on what your goals are and writing them down and just defining success on your farm and your goals and your actual revenue and not what could have been and what your neighbor's price is, focusing on your profitability on the farm. And I think we're going to talk about it a little bit later here today, just that debt asset ratio and how do we protect some profitable levels here.
And to your point, we're going to get into how readjusting targets and profitability goal come into play, because for a while that was our winter meeting conversation. But as the markets adjust, so do we. We really want to start talking about what that looks like. So this was a study conducted by Farm Credit. 82% of producers use store for later sale as their marketing tool. That's insane, especially when you look at some of the opportunities that are had beforehand.
It just feels like maybe it's not a priority that should be brought to the top on a farming operation, that your marketing plan needs to become a priority.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the reason we're getting into all of this is because that all plays into what that end goal is, to make money on the farm, right? And what are the behaviors that drive towards that? Currently, it seems a lot different when the fact remains that 70% of farmers said crop prices are one of their biggest challenges. Is our behavior showing that? If 46% of growers decide when to make a sale based on cash flow needs, when 7% of farmers use risk management tools to sell their crop, yikes. And 73% of farmers use spot sales to sell their crop. That is quite a difference in the behavior. If they're saying their concerns around markets is one of their biggest challenges, yet their behavior is showing completely differently because they aren't spending the time focusing on it.
Those are heavy numbers. If you really just sit back and look at that, that's heavy. You talk about behaviors, emotions are hard to market. You got a lot of emotion wrapped up in that. It can be hard to understand, a lot of uncertainty in the market. And we're coming from a time that we had some pretty good times, pretty good prices in our markets. It's changed.
It certainly has. And one of the biggest reasons for that is the balance sheets, right? Well, part of it is our farm balance sheet because we've gotten pretty comfortable with where things are sitting. We don't have to market. So maybe we don't really want to pay attention to that. We don't enjoy that part of a job. So we're not going to pay attention to it right now because we don't have to. Right. But the other balance sheet that we're looking at is that corn stocks to use. That's a daunting balance sheet. And this is one that we've brought up before, and we don't want to sit there and hammer on things over and over again. But this is the big picture that we have to keep in mind at. And even then, right, look at soybeans from a worldwide perspective, how much we're sitting on. These are times where we don't necessarily have to see this massive run up. Can it happen? Sure, anything can happen. But we got to look at the reality of what is in front of us and say, okay, what does that mean to my farm then? Because the other balance sheet is a big one, right? And when you look at what that US farm debt to equity ratio has done in the past, we see that when the markets are going up, our debt to equity ratio goes down, which is a beautiful thing. But then as that market starts to fall apart, we all of a sudden start losing equity on the farm. I don't know about you, Lori, but I like to keep equity, right? And not just give it away. And granted, there's some things that are out of our control, but certainly a lot of this is more market related than what people like to think. And are we prepared to just give our farm equity away to the market when we ourselves do something differently about that?
You know, a bold statement here might be is don't become complacent and, take those blinders off and really evaluate the numbers here. So just do not become complacent in this market and do not have your blinders off. If anything, I think the blinders need to be ripped off.
Yeah, 100%. It's here, right? We're showing you the facts that when we have that massive carry out on corn, that the corn prices typically are in that 350 area. And if you look back to the US farm debt to equity ratios, when we're in 350 corn, it doesn't look that great on the farm, right? And that's what we're here to avoid, is to keep as much as we possibly can to the farm. And you do that by hedging the price. We're saying all of this, right? We're hammering kind of some big picture thoughts here because we're going into a time where we are canceling some of the targets that we had working and replacing them with new ones that are more reasonable in expectation with what the market's done now. And the reason we want to come back to this piece is because if the goal on years like this is to at least keep as much equity as I possibly can, then we need to have a realistic mindset as to what that market looks like going forward.
So do you put it on paper, Kristin?
Yeah.
You need to just write those goals for your farm on a piece of paper. Put it
100%.
somewhere you frequently see it.
Keep equity, right? Take the US balance sheet and what the farmer's balance sheet typically looks like, paste it up somewhere, right? Screenshot this for all I care. And then sit there and say, my goal this year is X. And write that down. Why write it down, right? And here's where I get some goofy looks whenever I have the meetings with them, because when I say, what's your profitability goal this year? And let's actually get this down on paper and figure out where we want to go with them. Well, I just want to make sure that I make as much money as I possibly can. That's great. But when we don't have a target that we're actually aiming at, then you're likely to fly wherever, right? Think about the airplane. I'm in vacation mode right now, Lori, right? So I'm hoping to heck that the pilot that's going to be driving my plane has a specific spot that he wants to go when he's driving it. And you should too in your job. And what does that look like? That looks like having that written down on paper. Why? Because there's been multiple studies out, but the one that we have referenced is one that was put on by Harvard's Business School. And they found that the people who set goals for their business are 10 times more successful than those that don't. And the people that write down their goals are 30 times more successful than the people that don't. And the percentage of people that write down their goals is 3%.
Oh, they don't have a flight plan.
Exactly. So then they're just wandering aimlessly.
Yeah.
And so one of our biggest goals, right, is that you guys stay focused on your profitability. Why, right? There's the whole why behind it. We want to make sure you're focused on that goal, whatever that number looks like for you. And then we're going to hammer that hard. And right now, that's what we're working on doing behind the whole readjusting targets, because that inches ourselves closer and closer to that profitability goal that we're searching for. And then that drives the successfulness of your business. If those all line up to be true, which studies show that they are, then we better be doing the things. If we believe in our hearts that that is the thing that we should be doing, then our behaviors better be showing the same thing.
So as you prepare for flight, and we've brought some very thought-provoking information, hopefully, to you folks today, grab that piece of paper, grab the pen, write it down. What are your farming goals? What's your family goals for your operation? I hope you take this seriously and get some things on paper and get a flight plan put together for your operation.
And what are the baby steps that are going to take us there,
Yeah.
right? AKA, where do I need to sell corn? Where do I need to sell beans? And am I realistic in those expectations, or do I need to adjust my timeline? Fill in the blank, right? But get to Lori's point, get it written down.
Right. Well, thanks for joining us on this episode of Grain Gab. And if you like what you see and hear, please subscribe and hit the like button. It really helps our algorithms. Thanks to Paige and Lexi and the Insights team for making us look good. And until next time, keep your head up, keep grounded, flight plan in place. Cheers.